So in this video we're going to look at how to format decimals. Now this can get very muddled. Concepts are very, very simple, and the best way to illustrate it is by taking pi. Have a look at what I've written here. I've imported the maths library. I've got a statement which says the value of pi is, and there's my gap for gap filling. There's the variable that's going to fill it. From the maths library I get the value of pi. So if I run it, if you look up above, I run it and that's what it gives me. Okay, so let's run it so you can just see it for yourself. It gives me 3.141592653. We can have more or less. Now here's the interesting thing. Let's say I only wanted 2 decimal places. How do I do it? It all comes down to how I use this bracket. So if I flip back to here and so you can see it, we're not worried about position, so I only need the colon. I don't need a number in front of it. Okay, if I want to muck around with the order of values, I can put numbers in there, but I'm not interested. I'm interested in 2 decimal places. So let's try this out and see whether this will work. If I replace what's inside there with that, run it, have a look at what's happened. It's given me 2 decimal places. Now I've just typed that in and done it and executed it. So let's go back and have a look at the logic of this. After the colon, I've got a decimal point and it says 2. So you can literally see this as 2 decimal points, and the F represents the word float. Float is the decimal data type. So by putting .2F, I can give 2 decimal places. So if you want to play with this, change that to 3. Right? And there's 3. So let's create a very, very simple loop. Okay, and what we're going to do in this loop, well, we won't do this here actually, bear with me a second. It would be a nice exercise to dynamically change that through a series of looping statements, and then have a look at how it changes it. But you can do this manually. Bear with me a sec. Let's do it. Let's do 4, run that. Look, it's got 4 decimal places. How straightforward is that? So that's essentially how you control, and it's after the colon. Now, look at this. If I put in the number 12 before the decimal places, what do you think that will do? Let's have a go. Let's pop the number 12 in before the decimal, but after the colon, right, and see what happens. Now, you notice there's a big gap here. Here. If I remove it, take the 12 away, and run it again, watch what happens to that gap. It disappears. If I add in, say, 5, run it again. Oops, have I done that correctly? Yes, I have. Doesn't seem to have done anything. If I add in 9, let's see what that does. A gap starts opening up. Actually, it's very, very quite clever. What this number here does is it says, for you, when you're going to write this out, I'm going to give you 12 character spaces to write it out in. So here, because I only had 4 decimal points, it's used up all of that, and then the remaining spaces is just left me as white spaces. That's why when I did the earlier one, where I just say if I do 4 and I run it, look at it, then if I do 5 and run it, bear with me a second, that one there, it's the same. That's because in order to display 4 decimal places, you're already using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 characters. So anything less than 7, it won't make any difference. It won't give you any more space. If I type in 8 there and run it, should just pad it, and you see it shifted it. So the question for you is, how useful is that? When would you use that? It has a lot of use if you're trying to align text, arrange text, set it out so it's all in even columns, for example. If you want to manipulate your text so you have a table and it all lays it out really neatly. This number before allows you to determine how much padding you're going to have. So if you have a piece of data which is really, really long and you always give it 12 spaces, right? In this sentence, it just gives it, pads it out. But if you had a different value which used 11 spaces, it would keep all of your alignment quite accurate. And that's one of the key uses for this number here. Okay, so I'm just going to bring this video to an end. What I would recommend is that you take a number. Let's take a different number, right? Let's take 34.5, just quite a big number, right? The value, and just, we're not dealing with pi now. What I'd like you to do is just play with it. Now, it's displayed it to 4 decimal places. What's interesting is I haven't said to it you can have 12 characters, 20 characters. It makes no difference. It will take whatever it needs to display the 4 decimal characters. But let's say I wanted to have some alignment, okay? So let me show you a last trick. Let's say that the first number I'm going to do is just display that one. And the second number, let's do V3, and V3 is going to be 45.56, a bit smaller, okay? Let's have a look what happens if I print each of the statements. So V1 is going to be formatted with V2 in the line above, and then V3, have I got too many spaces? Quite possibly, I think I need one up here. No, that's fine, I've got one too many, I think, here. No, that's fine. That's fine, and I need one more. Bear with me a second. And up here, I've got 1 and 2. So I've got an extra pair here. Let's just get rid of these extra brackets. Okay, right. What do you think will happen if I display these two? I'm going to display both of them to 4 decimal places. Right? Let's get rid of the space at the end and run it. It's neatly lined them up. It's actually just given me 4 decimal places. But here, look what happens if I take 20 characters to do it. It's neatly lined them up against that edge there. So this is actually really quite useful if you had a table. If I had, and I had the top table, right? Let's say that I use the same function. Bear with me a second. If in the top line I said data, colon, right, have a look at this. That's kind of misaligned. So what I need to be able to do is display that over there. So if I do this and I use the same 20, let's have a look and see what happens here now. Actually doesn't really do anything, does it? Do you see? Because I cannot use that just to pad. In order to pad, I need to have a different. And what I would recommend you do is go away and play and find out how to pad it so you can align columns of data. So there's your header, but this is all shifted across. So imagine I've got a table of data and I want to align it all. How would you align the text at the top? I'll leave you with that. The crucial elements and concepts are all around the number of decimal places and the number of padding.